A bank manager laughs cruelly. Got balance? I'll pay double. Mocking a black teenage girl he assumes is a fraud. Little does he know, she is not just a customer, but the CEO's own daughter. His arrogance has just put him in a trap that will not only cost him his job, but his entire career. If you have a balance, I'll pay you double. Manager Thomas Richardson's cruel laughter echoed through the Premier Trust Bank branch in Manhattan. He watched the 14-year-old black girl standing at his counter. Seriously, kid, are you sure you're at the right bank? He said. The community branch is 3 blocks away. Jasmine Williams maintained the calm she had rehearsed mentally during the entire subway ride there. At 14, she knew exactly where she was and why she was there. What Mr. Richardson didn't know was that this visit was part of a much bigger plan. I need to open a premium checking account, Jasmine said firmly, placing her school ID on the Italian marble counter. And I'd like to deposit this. She slid a $50,000 check next to the document. The manager took the check as if it were a poorly rehearsed play, her eyebrow arched in thinly veiled contempt. Honey, this must be some kind of school prank. Checks of this magnitude require prior verification, he added. But Jasmine interrupted softly. It's real. You can check it. Around him, other customers began to pay attention to the scene. Jennifer Morrison, a 40-year-old executive with a designer handbag, whispered to her friend, "That's exactly why these kinds of people shouldn't have access to serious institutions." Thomas Richardson, manager of Premier Trust's most prestigious branch for 15 years, considered himself a guardian of the institution's standards. Her family had been in banking for 3 generations. She had an MBA from an expensive private university, and she had connections to New York's financial elite. And now here was this child trying to deposit a check that she had probably stolen or forged. Listen, hear her. Thomas leaned over the counter, her voice low but laden with veiled menace. I don't know what game you're playing, but bank fraud is a federal crime. I'm going to have to call security and the police, he said. Jasmine didn't flinch. In the last 3 months, since her father, David Williams, took over as CEO of Premier Trust, she had learned a lot about banks, systemic discrimination, and above all, how people revealed their true characters when they thought they were dealing with someone inferior. A quick flashback crossed her mind. The dinner meeting 2 weeks ago, when her father mentioned receiving troubling reports about racial discrimination at some branches. I need to see this with my own eyes, he had said, concerned. And Jasmine, always observant, always strategic, had an idea. Dad, she had said, let me do a test. I'll visit some agencies as a normal customer. You'll be shocked by what he finds out. Her father resisted at first, worried about his 14-year-old daughter being exposed to explicit racism. But Jasmine insisted, someone needs to document this for real, and they'll never suspect a teenager. Now, as Thomas Richardson summoned the security guard with an imperious gesture, Jasmine discreetly activated the recording function on his smartwatch, a gift from his father, equipped with state-of-the-art technology. Every word, every look of contempt, every malicious laugh was being documented. Mike, Thomas called to the security guard, a large man in his 50s. We have a situation here. Possible fraud, possibly theft. Keep the girl here while I call the police. A gray-haired gentleman, Mr. Patterson, a customer for 30 years, nodded his approval. That's right, Thomas, he said. You have to protect our institution from this kind of element. Jasmine watched everything with disconcerting serenity. She had anticipated every reaction, every word of hatred disguised as banking protocol. Her little mental notebook recorded Thomas Richardson, Jennifer Morrison, Mr. Patterson, Mike the security guard. They would all be remembered when the truth came out. The check is for my father, Jasmine said calmly. He gave it to her as an early birthday present. He, Williams. Thomas paused for a millisecond, long enough for Jasmine to see a flash of recognition cross his face before it was replaced by more arrogance. Of course it is, he said with venomous sarcasm. And I'm the cousin of the bank president. What Thomas didn't know was that David Williams was exactly 2 blocks away in a cafe monitoring everything through the live feed from Jasmine's smartwatch. By his side, Margaret Chun, head of human resources, and Robert Martinez, general counsel, watched in horror as they took meticulous notes. Mike the security guard was already approaching when Jennifer Morrison decided to add her poisonous contribution. Frankly, these people think they can just walk in anywhere. No manners, no class. It's pathetic, she said. Gentlemen, Jasmine's voice maintained that irritating calm, that unshakable dignity that Thomas found completely inappropriate for someone of his class. Are you sure you want to continue with this? She asked. There was something in his eyes, a confidence, a secret knowledge that made Thomas hesitate for half a second, but he had already gone too far to back down. Absolutely, Thomas replied, picking up the phone. Hello, police. I have a minor here trying to deposit a fraudulent check for $50,000. Yes, I'll keep her restrained until you arrive. Jasmine allowed herself a small smile. Not one of fear, not one of nervousness, but one of someone who had just witnessed the enemy fall into their own trap. Jasmine was born with a calm that belied her age. It wasn't the calm of a shy or timid girl, but the deep, unshakable calm of someone who always knew more than she was letting on. She had learned this from her father, David Williams. His journey to becoming the CEO of Premier Trust was a testament to his resilience and a constant reminder to Jasmine that you don't always have to fight the loudest to win. When her father first mentioned the troubling reports of racial bias within the bank, she saw an opportunity. Her friend, Chelsea, a 15-year-old white girl, had recently visited a Premier Trust branch to open a basic savings account with a few $100s. She was met with a friendly smile, a full-service tour, and was offered promotional merchandise. Jasmine, on the other hand, a month earlier had gone into a different branch and was told she couldn't open an account without her father present. The stark contrast in their experiences became the foundation of Jasmine's plan. They'll never suspect a teenager, she'd told her father. Especially not me. I can see what they're doing, and they won't even know I'm looking. Her plan was meticulously crafted. The $50,000 check was legitimate, a gift from her father. The high-end outfit, the simple gold necklace, the school ID, everything was designed to create an appearance that was non-threatening, unremarkable, and easy for people with preconceived notions to dismiss. This was more than a simple social experiment. It was a targeted operation to expose a systemic issue that had been hidden for far too long. Every detail, from the choice of bank branch, one known for its affluent clientele and old guard management, to the exact wording of her request, was a precise step in her strategy. Jasmine's most valuable tool was the custom smartwatch her father had given her, disguised as an expensive piece of jewelry. Its primary function was a secure live video and audio feed transmitted to her father's tablet. It was the only reason he had agreed to the plan. "I'll be watching every second," he had promised. And he was. 2 blocks away, in a quiet cafe, David, Margaret Chun, and Robert Martinez watched the entire scene unfold. On the tablet screen, they saw Thomas Richardson's sneer and heard every word. They saw Jennifer Morrison's disgusted look and heard her condescending whispers. The live feed gave them a real-time, unfiltered view into the reality of their company's culture. "The police are on their way," Thomas said, a triumphant smirk on his face. "This little game of yours is over. You'll be spending the night in a juvenile detention center." He pulled out his phone and took a quick photo of Jasmine and the check, as if to document his heroic deed for posterity. "Fraudulent check, trying to scam a minor account," he muttered into his phone as he sent the photo to a colleague. He didn't know that every one of his actions was being recorded and sent to his boss. Jasmine sat quietly in the chair Thomas had pointed to, legs crossed, hands resting on her knees. She didn't fidget, didn't cry, and didn't show an ounce of fear. This only seemed to enrage Thomas more. He wanted her to break, to cry, to show the shame and fear he believed she should feel. When the 2 police officers, Officer Riley and Officer Evans, walked in, Thomas rushed to greet them as if they were old friends. "Officer Riley, thank God you're here. We have a case of attempted bank fraud." He quickly motioned toward Jasmine. The officers, seasoned by years of dealing with various kinds of petty crime and deception, approached Jasmine with a professional but cautious demeanor. "Ma'am, do you have any identification?" Officer Riley asked. Jasmine quietly handed over her school ID. Officer Evans took it, and his expression shifted. "Jasmine Williams." "Williams?" He looked at Officer Riley with a confused expression. David Williams' name and face were well known, even to patrol officers, as he had been a major part of several community outreach programs in the past year. Officer Evans ran Jasmine's name and the check information through their system, and as the results came back, the officers' faces grew more and more puzzled. The check was legitimate. The account from which it was drawn was a corporate account, and the funds were not only available but far more extensive than the check itself. Thomas, who had been gloating, looked confused. "What do you mean, legitimate? That's impossible." "Look at her," he said, gesturing to Jasmine. Officer Riley shot him a warning look. "Sir, the check is valid. The funds are there. We're going to have to let her go." But Jasmine wasn't going anywhere. "Actually, I'm not leaving yet," she said, finally speaking again. "The bank fraud accusation was false. Now I'd like to talk about the harassment and discrimination." Her voice was still calm, but it had a new steely edge. Thomas, Jennifer, and Mr. Patterson all looked at her, then at each other. They had just accused a teenage girl of a serious crime, and it had backfired spectacularly. The trap, which they didn't even know existed, was about to snap shut. Jasmine's voice cut through the tense silence like a razor blade. "Do you want to know why I'm really here today?" The question took everyone by surprise. Thomas looked up from the tablet, his face quickly losing color. The absolute confidence on his face had already begun to waver when he saw the officer frowning. Now, standing before her was his worst nightmare. An intelligent, calm, and prepared opponent. 3 months ago, Jasmine began, her voice clear and firm. "My father took over as CEO of this bank." A flashback crossed her mind. The night she found her father in his home office, surrounded by reports, his expression heavy with sadness and anger. "Look at this, Jazz," he had said, showing her letters from Black and Latino customers who were treated like criminals just for walking into branches. Legitimate customers being escorted out. A woman being accused of using stolen cards. Young people being searched by security. "Dad," Jasmine had suggested, "you need to see this for yourself." And that's when the plan came together. Over the past 6 weeks, Jasmine continued, I visited 12 Premier Trust branches. 6 of them treated me normally, but 6, including this one, treated me exactly as he just did. Officer Reynolds, the veteran cop, crossed his arms, intrigued. "Interested? Go on." Thomas, now flustered, tried to interrupt. "This is absurd!" "I followed standard protocols." Jasmine cut him off, her voice maintaining that irritating calm. "Interesting. Because yesterday my friend Chelsea, who is white and my same age, came to the same branch to deposit a check for $40,000. Do you know how you treated her, Mr. Richardson?" Silence was his answer. He processed the deposit in less than 10 minutes. He offered her coffee. He addressed her respectfully as Miss. He didn't ask for extra documentation. He didn't call the police. Jennifer Morrison took a step back, finally understanding the magnitude of what she had participated in. Mr. Patterson tried to slip out discreetly, but Mike, the security guard, inadvertently blocked the exit. "Do you know the difference between me and Chelsea?" Jasmine's voice carried the weight of centuries of injustice. "She's white, I'm black. Same age, same bank, same type of transaction, but completely different treatment." Thomas was now sweating profusely. I didn't discriminate against anyone?" "It was just standard security protocol." "Lies," said a firm voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see David Williams entering the branch, flanked by Margaret Chun and Robert Martinez. The CEO of Premier Trust himself, in his impeccable suit and commanding presence, commanded immediate respect. "Daddy," Jasmine said simply, a small smile touching her lips for the first time. Thomas's face went from red to gray. Jennifer Morrison let out an audible gasp, and Mr. Patterson literally tried to melt into the wall. "Mr. Williams," Thomas stammered, extending a trembling hand. "I didn't know she was your daughter." "If I had known?" "Exactly," David interrupted, ignoring the outstretched hand. "If you had known she was my daughter, you would have treated her with respect. But an unknown black girl? She becomes automatically suspicious." Margaret Chun opened her tablet, showing the live feed from Jasmine's smartwatch. "We have it all on tape," she said calmly. Robert Martinez, the lawyer, looked at the officers. "Officers Reynolds and Kowalski, thank you for responding to the call. But as you can see, this was a documented social experiment to expose systemic discriminatory practices in our institution." "Smart girl," Officer Reynolds said, looking at Jasmine with new respect. "And brave." Thomas was still trying to process. "Mr. Williams, please let me explain." "You were just destroying my bank's reputation," David cut him off. "Exposing this institution to lawsuits for racial discrimination, violating federal civil rights by criminally profiling my daughter based solely on the color of her skin." Jennifer Morrison began to cry quietly, finally understanding that her poisonous comments had been captured and would be used as evidence. "My daughter," David said, placing his hand on Jasmine's shoulder with visible pride, "has just systematically documented a pattern of discrimination that I will use to clean this bank from top to bottom." Jasmine looked directly at Thomas. "You said that if I had balance, you would pay double. Remember?" "Well, Mr. Richardson," she said, a finality in her voice, "technically, I have much more than balance. My father owns 30% of the shares in this bank." The irony did not go unnoticed. The man who had mocked the balanceless black girl discovered that she was part owner of the very institution he worked for. "And now," Jasmine continued, her voice taking on an edge that made Thomas shudder, "you're going to find out that discrimination comes at a price much higher than $50,000.